We just had a verdict is in animation run. I want to be clear that a note has been sent from the jury. So we're a little more than an hour into deliberations today, roughly 14 and a half hours thus far since the jury started deliberating. Remember yesterday, they reached a verdict, unanimous verdicts on 4 of 5 counts facing Sean Diddy Combs, but they were deadlocked to that point, or at least in a place where they said they were unpersuadable on count 1, the racketeering conspiracy charge facing Sean Diddy Combs. We just got an update. It is a verdict. That is per CNN and Inner City Press, which has been covering this case. We do have a verdict in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. I want to bring in Sierra Gillespie, who is the host of Scandal here on Law and Crime. So just about an hour into deliberations today, Sierra, after they went home last night, they were not able to reach an agreement on count 1. Now we have a verdict coming in. What is your reaction as I'm being told that Combs and other lawyers have returned to the courtroom? And so we're going to continue to follow this. Just your reaction thus far, pretty quick this morning.
The verdict is in. It is official. I mean, yesterday we were talking about how 4 of the 5 counts had been decided upon. The verdict was in, but still a question mark for this morning. What could come of that final one, count 1, racketeering conspiracy? And only about an hour into deliberations this morning, the jury returns a verdict. And let me tell you, there was a lot going on. Up and down the row that I'm on right here, it's filled with media. And we're all sitting down waiting, what's going to happen, updating our phones. Is there any sort of, news coming? And all of a sudden I hear next to me, ABC, we've got a verdict. Everyone else, here's a verdict. And by the way, I think we have a court update. So I'm going to go back to Chris. Tell us what we know.
Yes, court update coming in. Again, we have a verdict in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Sean Diddy Combs' lawyers are still meeting with him in private as we wait for the verdict to be read in court. We know that Combs' mom and his sister are in the courtroom. We saw members of his family, his children were there. They actually prayed with Sean Diddy Combs inside of the courtroom this morning before members of his family left, which was probably about 15, 20 minutes ago. And then Sean Combs went to a separate room where he was going to wait out these deliberations. I want to bring in our panel of experts who are with me this morning, starting at 9 o'clock. Candace Kelly, legal analyst, and then we have William Corman, who's a criminal defense attorney. Both are joining us. So very quick, since I last spoke to you, that verdicts come in. Just Candace, what's your reaction? I mean, we were thinking potentially that this was going to be a hung jury. We're still working on getting those guests. But again, we were talking this morning because of yesterday, the jury used the term unpersuadable when saying that that's where they were at on this racketeering conspiracy charge that Sean Combs was facing, even though they were able to find unanimous verdicts on 4 counts facing Diddy. But here we are, just an hour in, going home, sleeping on it. The 12 members of the jury returning a verdict. We're going to work on getting our guests up. But Sierra, walk us through, as you've covered this every day, of what makes this racketeering charge so complicated and why it seemed the jury, at least early on in these deliberations, they were having an issue coming to a verdict on this charge leading up to about 5 minutes ago.
Well, I'm really not surprised that it was count 1 that was the hung jury or the confusion, right? Because it is the most complicated of all of them, racketeering conspiracy. And this is something we've talked at length about with the predicate crimes, things like arson, bribery, forced labor, kidnapping. And it's got to be confusing. I mean, for me, who doesn't have a law degree, I've been covering this case for quite some time now. Even at times I waver and I'm like, wait, what is this about? Let's, make sure to go back and really think about it. And I think for jurors, that's what it's got to be, right? It's now become their job to figure this out. However, they weren't watching P. Diddy before all of this. They might have seen his name in the news, but they weren't really zoning in on racketeering conspiracy. And I think the biggest issue in all of this is likely that it's a conspiracy, right? Multiple people had to take part in this conspiracy. And yet there was only one person charged, one defendant, P. Diddy. And to me, that could be the question mark in all of this. And I do want to say, before we throw back to our guests really quickly, we were not expecting this verdict. P. Diddy's family walked out of the courtroom. I watched him go. Everyone thought, okay, that's the way it's going to be. And all of a sudden, they're coming right back in. We're getting the rush. And again, it just wasn't expected after 1 hour of deliberation this morning.
Court update again. Sean Combs has entered the courtroom. He looked at his family. Again, his mom and his sister are there right now. He looked at his family, nodded his head, and flashed a small smile. Let's bring in our experts right now. Candace Kelly, legal analyst. William Corbin, good to see you again. What is your reaction, Candace? I'll start with you. William Corbin, criminal defense attorney, by the way. But Candace, I'll start with you. Your reaction to the jury reaching this verdict?
Well, listen, I'm not surprised. I know that we talked about lunch just a few minutes ago. I'm a little quiet now because I'm in a TV studio. You probably see people running behind me, by the way. But I'm not surprised because, listen, we know that there was a point where they were coming to a conclusion in all this, and we thought that it was going to be today. I think what happened is that when they slept on it, maybe a lot of them made their decisions and came to a conclusion when they got to court, because that's very quick. It's 10:13 right now. Not a lot of discussions, probably just a lot of voting on each of the charges and then moving on.
It'll be fascinating to hear just how many people yesterday were on one side compared to the others, to the other on this charge, the 12 jurors. William, what's your reaction that they were able to, in about an hour today, find a verdict?
This is why I never bet on how long it's going to take to reach a verdict.
Right.
Because I think both Candace and I were looking at noon or a little bit after noon,
Yes.
and that was about 6 minutes ago. So we're both way off. I agree with Candace. I think that giving them the night off, giving them the pause, allowed whoever it was that needed to do some internal soul searching, whoever it was that needed to marshal their arguments to convince whatever holdouts there were. Thing worse than sitting around waiting for a verdict is when you know there is a verdict and you're sitting around waiting for the verdict to be read. This is about as high drama and about as tense as it gets. I've been in this position many times. It is an uncomfortable feeling because you're trying to read tea leaves that simply don't exist. They are sitting in that courtroom right now, just staring at the wall.
All right, y'all. Good morning. As you know, the verdict is in. Came rather quickly. The jury has been together for a little, I think maybe a little over or a little under an hour. And I'm trying to stay up to date because we don't have a live feed for the courtroom. So based on what is on CNN last minute ago, they said that the judge is on the bench. The jury sent a note at 9:52 a.m. Saying that we have reached the verdict on all counts. Of course, Diddy is in the courtroom. They said he looked at his family, nodded his head, and flashed them a small smile. His mother and sister are in the courtroom as well. Another thing on CNN said a federal jury has reached a verdict in the racketeering and trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs, the hip hop mogul accused of operating a criminal enterprise. Let's see what else we have here. Judge cautions everyone in courtroom to maintain order. The judge cautioned everyone in the courtroom and overflow rooms to maintain order. So I guess the jury is about to come in and we are about to get this verdict. So we will see what happens next. I'm going to stay on the CNN feed because I feel as if that's the most up-to-date place at the moment. But yes, it didn't take them long. They went home last night instead of continuing to deliberate. As you know, last night they went home having made a decision, a unanimous decision on all counts except for the RICO charge. And so they came back today. I think they started at 9:00, if I'm not mistaken. And by 9:52, they had made a decision. And so we are waiting right now in order for us to take the next steps and what is going on this morning. But again, the judge has cautioned everyone in the courtroom to maintain order. The jury sent a note to the judge at 9:52 a.m. saying that we have reached a verdict on all counts. Diddy is in the courtroom. Let's see here. The jury is now entering the courtroom. The judge asked the jury four-person to confirm that the panel has reached a verdict. The four-person confirmed they've reached the unanimous verdict. So here we go. I'm just staying on CNN just so I can stay up to date with what the what the situation is here. I'm expecting this information now to kind of come in rather quickly. It normally doesn't take long. Four-person will now read the verdict. The jury four-person will now read the verdict. And we're waiting. So I honestly, right now in this moment, I'm really thinking about his daughters more than anything. Just, I know it's a lot with this. It's a lot with this story, of course, with the fame, the power, the money. But at the end of the day, we are talking about human beings. So as far as the children who've already lost their mother, I just really feel bad for them to be in this situation. And their father put them in this situation, to be quite frank. It's just unfortunate. So we're still waiting. There's no other update on CNN right now. They still say the four-person will now read the verdict. So we're just waiting on an update. Maybe I'll switch over and see if anyone else is maybe more, make sure that we're getting it as soon as everybody else is getting it.
I do apologize if I'm looking off screen as I typically. Guilty. Deputy, transportation for.
Okay, I think it's coming in, so let's see. Hold on, let me go back to where they were.
Prostitution, juror number 5, guilty. So we have 2 not guilties on count 1, racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, that is not guilty, and transportation for prostitution, guilty. What is your reaction, William, to what the jury has found in the case against Sean Combs?
So far, I'm very surprised. I thought that the prosecution really did put forward a fantastic case involving Cassie Ventura. I'm surprised that they weren't able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I think that the defense counsel certainly did a great job in sort of showing the back and forth, the digital footprints that we talked about earlier, showing that, perhaps she was a willing participant in all this. Perhaps, she did know what was going on and that she was okay with it. That's my take on it.
The final 2 counts for sex trafficking of the victim who went by the pseudonym Jane, juror number 5 says not guilty, and transportation for prostitution of Jane, juror number 5 finds guilty. The jury finds it guilty, according to the foreman, juror number 5. Candace, what is your reaction?
So listen, we're not surprised. We knew that lower act, we knew that the transportation crossing straight lines in order to engage in prostitution, we knew that was practically a given, that the defense was willing actually to give up, as we talked about before, that's up to 10 years. So that could really be across the spectrum. What we know it's not is RICO. We know it's not 20 years to life. And I think that that's something that defense definitely would say is a win. We are not surprised. I think that none of us are.
William, what does this mean for Sean Combs now? These are the 2, the 2 weakest charges in terms of penalties, I guess you would say, in terms of seriousness of charges. Not guilty on racketeering, not guilty on sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, not guilty of sex trafficking of Jane. What does this verdict mean, getting those 2 guilty verdicts on the transportation for prostitution charges?
Well, obviously, there's still serious charges. I mean, it's the full weight of the federal government has come down against Mr. Combs and is charging him with these crimes. Obviously, he is relieved to have not been found guilty of the more serious crimes, if you will, but these were serious nonetheless. And there is a possibility that he's going to be sentenced to federal prison as a result. Both these counts carry with him up to 10 years in federal prison. He does have, I want to say, 10 or 12 months in already. He would get credit for that. I do think that there's a reasonable likelihood that he'll still be sentenced to some period of state prison and obviously, federal prison. But again, it's still.
Okay, let's just pause. And let's just recap what happened. So just then, Sean Diddy Combs found guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. I thought for sure they were going to find him guilty of the S trafficking charge for Cassie, but they said not guilty. So Sean Diddy Combs was found guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, but not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, and a mixed verdict. Combs, 55, was charged with 5 counts, 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, and 2 counts each of sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. So those charges, the transportation to engage in prostitution, comes with a 10-year maximum sentence. So we'll see what he gets. I feel more certain than ever that Donald Trump probably will, even more so now. I thought he would pardon him even if he had been found guilty of the worst crimes, but I feel absolutely certain that he will pardon him now for sure. But this is definitely a win for the defense. This is definitely a win for the family. And I am going to tell you this. I know there are probably a lot of people who are upset right now that he was not found guilty on the S trafficking charges, probably specific to Cassie. From what I saw, I think most people were on board with Jane. No. But so I respect that. I respect all the different perspectives, the different views, and why people feel the way they feel, specifically to that charge. I respect your feelings, quite frankly, on all of the charges. I am going to say, as it relates to the RICO charge, I am very, very happy that he was found not guilty. It was an overreach by the government. Most of us have been saying that from the beginning. A lot of these lawyers and talking heads on major networks and then so on some of the bigger YouTube channels, they were saying that no, it's the opposite. They have them on RICO. This is why. And we kept saying we don't see it. And it's so funny, y'all. The verdict just came in and they're already saying, well, we knew it. We knew they wouldn't be able to get them on RICO. It reminds me of the election, PTSD. At any rate, again, Sean Diddy Combs found guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, but not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering. Again, it's a mixed update. The judge to the jurors, the choice to speak about the case is up to you. The judge told the jurors that members of the press and others will likely try to speak with them about the case. There's an important reason to respect the privacy of your deliberations, he said. That being said, the choice of whether to speak to others about the case and your personal views is up to you. He told them not to speak about other jurors' views or how the deliberations played out. All right, y'all. So that is it. 8 weeks in to the Diddy trial and landing here now. At this point, this is where we are. Judge thanks jurors for a tremendous sacrifice. He said, I want you to know that it is inspiring to all of us. You listened, you worked together, you were here every day, rain or shine. You did so with no reward other than the reward that comes from answering the call of public service. That should give all of us hope, he said. The judge said he would meet the jurors to thank them personally for their service. The jury is now leaving the courtroom. Wow. Did it land the way you all thought it would land? I would love to know. Please post a comment and let me know. What are your thoughts about the verdict? Are you in alignment with what the jurors decided? Do you feel a different way about what the jurors decided? I think we could have a long conversation about RICO. Let me tell you something. I am so glad that RICO charge failed. I'm so glad they failed to get a conviction on that RICO charge, because that RICO charge should have never been brought. It was an overcharge. And my biggest concern with that charge wasn't really about Diddy. It was really about how, if they set a precedent for being able to file a RICO case the way they did with the information and the evidence that they had, I just already knew how that would harm other people who did not have the resources and the means that Diddy has to even fight back. And we already know that that's just not a good thing for us at all. So I am very, very happy that that RICO charge they found not guilty. I'm ecstatic about that. So I guess we may have an update here in a second as far as when the sentencing will take place for Diddy as it relates to what he was found guilty of. I don't think that I don't know if it happens today. Normally they schedule another date in order to give the sentence, but as of today, what we know for sure is that Diddy has been found guilty only of the transportation to engage in prostitution. And that is something that I've said on this channel, even as yesterday, that in my opinion, that was the only charge that was a slam dunk. Now, I thought that the jury was going to find him guilty of trafficking Cassie. I thought they were probably going to do that, especially with the testimony that they requested. That is what I thought, but I was wrong on that. I was definitely wrong on that. Yeah, so let's tap back in and see what the folks are talking about. Now, y'all already know these talking heads now gonna say, oh, we knew it. They've already started this morning. Oh, we knew it. We knew they should have never brought the RICO. But that is not what a lot of them were saying, especially the lawyers. And I can think of a few YouTubers who are probably fainting in the street right now because they had him dead to rights guilty on all of the charges, including RICO, and that RICO was an overreach. Debate the others, but that RICO was an overreach from day one.
Coming up right now, I will hear from the government in a moment. Are you proposing he just walk outside now? And the defense says yes. Candace, there's going to be a lot of conversation about Sean Combs and his legacy. You can't unsee the 2016 video from the Intercontinental Hotel, that is for sure. But how does this verdict impact how people may view Sean Combs going forward?
You know, some people are going to view him as a hero. Some people are going to view him as a victim. They really will. Some people are going to say, what in the world? We were in there for 7 weeks and we heard all of this debauchery and all of these things that when we look at the cumulative effect of the evidence, I think he was guilty. So you're going to have people on both sides. But I think in terms of his legacy, personally, the legacy for him is going to still be his music. That's going to survive and live. But I think there's a legacy that's going to happen in terms of this case in particular. And when RICO is used, there's going to be a lot of conversation and information exchange online and on shows like yours about when do we really need to apply RICO.
You know what I think? I think that Diddy's legacy is going to be heavily dependent on what he does next. I think Diddy actually can recover from that videotape. I think he has the type of personality that can maneuver those waters. He would be probably similar to a Dr. Dre who maneuvered those waters, and people still celebrate Dr. Dre to me and act like he never did a thing, which is always amazing to me how people kind of pick and choose who they will let navigate the waters and who they won't. So I think Diddy has a good chance to navigate these waters, restore some, anyway, if not all, but restore some of how people felt about him, depending on what he does next. Does he really go about trying to, get himself together? Because if he doesn't, and honestly, when you look at Diddy's history and having been in messed up situations like this, he's not the one that normally learns from past experiences. But if he can, after this verdict, which he's only been found guilty of the pay for play charges, if he can pull himself together, get himself together, turn his life around, move differently, if he can do that, I believe that people will definitely allow him some grace. I definitely believe that. The big question will be is if he can do that. Because if we go by his track record, he doesn't normally learn when he gets like what he got this morning. Because I'm telling you right now, the verdict he got this morning, that is a victory for the defense. That is a victory for Diddy. That is a victory for his family. He could have went to prison for life. If they had found him guilty of the S trafficking charges, the mandatory minimum was 15 years. 15 years. I thought for sure he was going to have at least 20, 25 years in prison. Because I thought they would find him guilty of S trafficking for Cassie, especially with the additional questions the jury had or information the jury asked for. And the 2 prostitution charges, those were slam dunk charges. So it's really going to be up to Diddy how his legacy is ultimately seen. But I'm willing to say right now that he can, to what extent, maybe not a full recovery, but I think he can recover a lot after this situation, depending on what he does next.
Because out of this, I think that that's what the largest conversation has been about. Yes, there was Astroglide and yes, there was baby oil, but what is this RICO and what does it mean? And is it being unfairly used by people who are in the music industry? Is it being unfairly used by people like him who happen to be rich
Yes,
and
it
seems
is.
like someone who we could make a big headline out of if we're the prosecutors? This is what the defense was saying in their closing argument, that this is just over prosecution of someone who, let's leave his legacy alone. There's nobody here who's coming after Sean Combs, but the government. Don't trust them. I think that that's going to be the lasting legacy of this case in particular.
And you think of the 2016 video once again, and it's the video of Sean Combs. He's in a towel. He's chasing after Cassie Ventura, and grabs her and beats her. It was video that Sean Combs then, according to testimony from a security guard, he paid off $100,000 to get rid of what he thought was the only copy. And yet, in the end, they find not guilty of sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura. William, what about her testimony just didn't get the job done? Or maybe should I say, what is it about the defense's argument that did get the job done and got a not guilty verdict?
I'm going to assume that it was the defense counsel's argument that was saying, look, this is a complicated relationship. This is a relationship that was fraught with domestic violence, but Sean Combs hasn't been charged with domestic violence. Sean Combs has been charged with this grand scheme, this RICO enterprise, if you will. And there's a big difference between being involved in the RICO scheme and being, unfortunately, a serial abuser. And if we were on trial for him being a serial abuser, there's no argument to be made. We've all watched the video. We're going to watch it 100 times during the course of this trial. But you can't make the connection between him being a serial abuser to him running this giant criminal enterprise, including the sex.
Okay, let me give you all the latest update from CNN. The defense attorney, Mark Agnifilo, says that Sean Diddy Combs should be released on appropriate conditions in light of the fact that Combs has been acquitted on racketeering and S trafficking. He says Combs would go back to his house in Miami and abide by conditions set by the court. Combs does not have access to his plane, and his entire family is here. Agnifilo said, and any 5 of them can sign on to a bond. Agnifilo wants him released today. The judge asked, is your proposal that he leave this courtroom and walk outside? Agnifilo said it is. Y'all, that might happen. We'll see what this judge has to say about that. But the defense team is saying that Combs should be released today. He's already been in jail for an extended period of time. And ultimately, he's only been found guilty, and maybe I shouldn't say only, but he's been found guilty of the prostitution charges. And so the defense team is saying you should release Diddy today. So we'll see how that goes over.
Sex trafficking, because again, there was a huge amount of digital footprints where she was involved in it and she was willing to go along with it and she was amenable to it and she indicated that she was into it and things along those lines. And those points obviously hit home with the jury.
And also not guilty on sex trafficking of the victim who went by the pseudonym Jane, who also there were text messages that the defense used to argue that these were consensual relationships. There's been a lot of talk, Candace. I want to say hello to the 55,000 people joining us right now for this coverage of the verdicts in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. There's been a lot of talk about just how good Sean Combs' defense team was, that this was the all-star dream team cast for a defense team. What did they do that is different than the typical defense attorney that you see in a courtroom?
Present witnesses. It was kind of like they did, in that they were able to jab holes into the witnesses on cross-examination. So really they had witnesses speaking on their behalf. If you look on it that way, that you are my witnesses, and now I'm going to show inconsistencies. Now I'm going to show bias. Now I'm going to show that you are a money grabber in this particular one. Now I'm going to show that the government is after Sean Combs. So I think that there were a lot of opportunities, and they did do a very good job. On the other hand, so did the prosecution. So I think that that's really kind of the takeaway, and that is when we look at these attorneys that were great across the board. That was one of the things that was really spectacular about this.
Y'all, this is just, I almost want to laugh at these people. I just want to laugh at these people because, I mean, what else are they going to say? But, and I guess it's just sticking out to me, like, how these news reporters, and I mean, they all, you know, let me shoot them some bail. They were guessing just like we all were. I guess because I have been following this trial so closely every day that I feel very close to like what their tone has been and the things that they've been saying. And it's just amazing to me when they come off as if like, we knew it. We didn't know anything. All of us, from the lawyers to the reporters, we were all guessing. Okay, so update from CNN. Prosecution intends to seek incarceration. See, they're mad now. Assistant U.S. Attorney Comey said the government opposes the motion. She said the trial showed evidence of an extensive abuse and prolific drug use that the defense did not contest. Sean Diddy Combs continued to commit a litany of crimes. She lost. She needs to accept that she lost. After he knew he was under investigation, she said, Comey argued that Combs does not respect the law and would likely commit new crimes if released. Girl, bye. Comey also confirmed the government intends to seek a sentence of incarceration and that Combs still faces up to 20 years in prison for the 2 counts he has been convicted of. Now, in my opinion, this is a person who cannot accept that they lost. And you better believe the government lost big today. They lost big today. They overreached. They charged Rico when they should not have, and she's mad. She's mad, and I mean, you could just tell from her wording. Now, I don't expect her to say, "Yay, let's open up the door and tell him to strut on out here right now. Can't stop, won't stop." Okay, I don't expect her to do all of that. Okay, but you can tell. I can feel the heat even from just reading these words about how mad she is. I don't know what this will look like for her career. I don't know what this means for her reputation. We all know about her dad, but I won't go there. Okay, so let's see. We have another update. Judge says he'll make a decision on Combs' possible release after lawyers submit letters. Judge asked the defense attorneys and prosecutors to submit letters on their positions about the possibility of releasing Sean Diddy Combs. The letters are due by 1 p.m. today. The judge will make a decision afterward. Now, y'all, I don't know what this judge is going to do. Because what I do know is prior to this moment, these judges have been 10 toes down on not letting Diddy go out on bail. But now we're here after the verdict and what he's been found guilty of. I wish the judge would let him go home with conditions. And I say that again because with the charges that Diddy had, we saw other people around the same time get the same charges. I can't remember those billionaires. They own some big time fashion store line or whatever. I just can't, their names escape me right now, but they got bail. And Diddy's lawyers even tried to say, well, why can't Diddy get bail if they got bail? I think both cases were in New York. But so I think I don't know. I think the judge might decide to let him go home until sentencing. He may very well decide that. We don't know. So at this point, and after the day, I'm not even speculating anymore. I am not even speculating anymore. What we do know is that the judge has told them to turn your letters in by 1 p.m. today, and I will make a decision on whether Diddy can be released today. So we'll see. We know his family definitely for sure are praying that he is released today. So again, the defense attorney says Combs should be released today. The prosecution intends to seek incarceration, and they are not. They are opposing that motion. They big mad. You didn't have your RICO case. You should have never brought it. The judge says he'll make a decision on Combs' possible release after lawyers submit letters, and they have to submit their letters by 1 p.m. today. Today. Okay, let's continue.
You saw fine attorneys on both sides doing very, very good work. Of course, Sean Combs is in that position to afford an attorney, and not everybody's legal journey is going to look this way.
Yeah, and that's why, for one, with that RICO charge, I was like, that's got to be not guilty. I hope it's not guilty, because the bottom line is, if that had set the precedent that it would have set, if they were able to charge him with RICO for what they had, we, after 8 weeks of trial to this day, the government never told us what is the criminal enterprise. We kept asking, what is the criminal enterprise? You can have a laundry list of predicate acts that is supposedly supporting the criminal enterprise that would get a conviction on RICO. So you got kidnapping, you got arson, you got bribery. And from the witness testimony, the bribery thing, I say check on that. The arson, to me, you did not prove it. Do I feel like he likely had something to do with it? Yeah, but I'm not going to send somebody to jail because of that. I need proof. Okay. The kidnapping part with Capricorn Clark and making her go to Kid Cudi's house. I believe that. So let's say if you said, okay, check, he definitely bribed the people at the hotel for the videotape. He definitely, let's say if your opinion was he definitely kidnapped Capricorn Clark. Okay, cool. At the top of that RICO charge, I still have to believe as a juror that this was in support of a criminal enterprise. Connect those dots. I could never connect those dots. I could not. Many people could not connect those dots. And apparently the jury, not apparently, and evidently, the jury could not connect those dots either. The government overreached with the RICO charge. And I'm telling you now, it is a victory for a lot of us, capital U, capital S, for a lot of us, that RICO charge, there was a not guilty verdict. And less about Diddy and more about like what this reporter just said. Other people are not going to have the resources to fight the way Diddy fought. You know, if they can start using RICO for how they tried to use it in this trial, do you know what that would do to, especially to a lot of minority people caught up in this system? And then it's going to be too late. So to me, we dodged something this time. And we have to stay vigilant because, you know, you can never think, oh, okay, we dodged that. We don't have to worry about that no more. We have learned, or we should have learned from even recent history, that you may take a breather after you think you got a victory, but you better stay vigilant. You better stay vigilant. So again, the defense is trying to have Diddy released today. Let me see. We have another update from okay, so after the verdict, Combs faced the courtroom gallery and clapped. Before he was led out of the courtroom, out by marshals, Sean Diddy Combs knelt down in front of his chair and bowed his head like he was praying. When he stood up, Combs faced the gallery and clapped, prompting the gallery to clap and cheer. Combs' attorneys all exchanged hugs as the gallery continued to cheer for them. Now, y'all, I can't wait. Oh, I tell you what, I follow this great YouTube creator called the Gray Haired Diva. And I know she is going to have a live tonight, and I will definitely be there because I don't have anything to conflict with that tonight. And I hope I have an opportunity to join her panel tonight because I definitely want to be there. I wish she was live like right now. If you all don't know who she is, check out her channel and subscribe. I think you would like her. And she covers a wide range of different topics and current events. But yeah, to see that after the verdict, Combs faced the courtroom gallery and clapped. Before he was led out of the courtroom, out by marshals, Sean Diddy Combs knelt down in front of his chair and bowed his head like he was praying. When he stood up, Combs faced the gallery and clapped, prompting the gallery to clap and cheer. Combs' attorneys all exchanged hugs as the gallery continued to cheer for them. Now, let me tell y'all something. What I'm happy about today, and I know I've said it already, but I'm going to say it again. What I am happy about today, more than anything, is that there was not guilty on the RICO charge. That was the biggest thing to me because I knew what that would do to other people who didn't have Diddy's resources. Now back to Diddy. Diddy. Oh, Diddy. You have yet again, my brother, dodged one hell of a bullet. It's time to get your life together. Now, I don't have no faith that Diddy's going to get his life together. And the reason why I say that is because based off of past things, he's been through some major things in his life. Major things. He was acquitted on all charges in 2001. It was a gun incident, the whole club thing. The whole thing with the party where 9 college kids or 9 people died in that. And, he was able to, he had some liability. He paid some people or paid some victims and he kind of moved on. Biggie, everything that happened with Biggie. There's debate. Was he a part of it or not? There's some conspiracies around that. But at the end of the day, what some have said that the target was not only on Biggie, but on him as well. Different incidents when he took a kettlebell and went to attack his son's football coach because he didn't like how the football coach was talking to his son. Charges were dropped in that. He was able to pay his way out of that. There's other incidences where he was able to basically, no harm, no foul. Kim Porter passing away. Let's say if you didn't have anything to do with that, because that's another conspiracy theory we don't know. But that was, so he says, the love of his life. Now, you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes in that because I don't think Diddy even knows what that is. Okay. But when that woman passed away, if she legitimately passed away of pneumonia only unexpectedly like that and left you here to take care of her damn children, y'all children, and you still out here living this life that you are, that could have sent you to prison for life, abandoning the children she left behind. I'm not talking about you leaving them with money. It takes more than just money. So you got another chance. And when I go through your big things that you've had chances, okay, get your stuff together. This may be number 12 or 13. So it's cool that he, did all of that, kneeling down in front of his chair and praying and all of that. But I am going by his past behavior. And what do they say? They say that the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. And if Diddy does not go get the therapy that he needs, the drug treatment that he needs, and if he's not serious about it, there's been some things thrown out that he might suffer from bipolar disorder. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just something that was mentioned. But whatever he has going on, he needs to fix whatever is going on with him. because what he's like, the relief he's feeling right now, we saw this relief in 2001 when he was acquitted of all charges. So when the update we just got from CNN said after the verdict, Combs faced the courtroom gallery and clapped. Before he was led out of the courtroom, out by marshals, Sean Diddy Combs knelt down in front of his chair and bowed his head like he was praying. When he stood up, Combs faced the gallery and clapped, prompting the gallery to clap and cheer. Combs' attorneys all exchanged hugs as the gallery continued to cheer for them. Yes, it is a victory. It is definitely a victory. Okay, so let's see what we got an update from Cassie's lawyer. Okay. Cassie Ventura's lawyer said this case proved that change is long overdue. Cassie Ventura paved the way for the jury to find Sean Diddy Combs guilty on some of the counts against him. The entire criminal process started when he continued by coming forward with her. Okay. All right. So this lawyer from Cassie is just saying that even with them getting a verdict on 2 of the charges proves that change is coming. Okay, he's trying to get camera time, because that, if anything, if he wasn't just trying to get camera time, if anything, he should be saying that he felt like they got shorted. Because at the end of the day, him being Cassie's lawyer, he definitely should have wanted them to find him guilty of trafficking of Cassie, and they did not. On that, they said not guilty. Not guilty. And see, and this is something too that is concerning. We have been saying from day one that if they had charged him with domestic violence, that would have been also a slam dunk charge, just like these prostitution charges, because they had him dead to rights on the prostitution charges. We knew that, right? If he had been charged with domestic violence, that also would have been a slam dunk, without a doubt. Okay. The trafficking, I thought the jury was going to find him guilty of trafficking Cassie based off of the questions they sent from the jury room. I definitely did not think they would find him guilty of that with Jane, because Jane ain't nobody's victim. But the thing that bothered me with Cassie's testimony on the trafficking were all of the text messages, the voice notes, and everything else we heard that kind of made it gray. I'm not talking about the domestic violence, okay? That is clear to me. That's not debatable. I said that off top. If you go back to my earlier lives on this trial when it started, I said that repeatedly, just to try to level set, because people sometimes they hear what they want to hear. But at the end of the day, it's kind of hard when I see you saying, "Man, I want an LFO so bad," and I've been playing back in my mind all day what me and you did the other day, and you're the one out there. It's kind of hard for me to then, as a juror, to go back in here and say, "Nope, he did it. She didn't never want this." I mean, it's too gray. It's too gray. So I said, well, you just have to prove that he did it once. But how the people are like, I have too much doubt. I don't know. I can't, by what I saw and the willingness and what looked like willful participation, and some of it for sure. And keep in mind, we didn't see the videotapes that the jurors saw. And there were instances where the defense made sure that they saw certain videos. So I'm imagining that where the government probably showed explicit videos where it may have looked like Cassie was under the influence, or Jane was under the influence, to try to suggest that's coercion. I think the defense probably made sure they saw videos to say, do you see what's going on here? Do you see anybody in this video who's looking like they don't want to be here? We already had the S workers say that, well, from what I could tell, everybody was enjoying it. I didn't see anybody looking upset. You had Brendan Paul say, well, no, every time I talk with Jane, she never seemed upset about any of it. So that's a lot of doubt. That is a lot of doubt. So it is what it is. It is what it is, right? So we knew that now if the jury had come back and said not guilty on the prostitution charges, I'd be like, oh, y'all wilding. y'all really wilding. Y'all just don't want to convict Diddy for whatever reasons. I mean, okay. Because to me, that's just a slam dunk. That's just a slam dunk. Okay. But Jane, to me, no, ma'am. No, ma'am, not gonna be able to do it. Now, if I were a juror, I could definitely not convict Diddy of doing no trafficking of Jane. Jane's testimony did not align with it. The way she was acting, I would, if I were a juror, I would not have even liked that. After her testimony, she got off the stand and went over there and hugged the government's lawyers and then hugged Diddy's lawyers. Like, girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because now you done got up here, you done did all this talking about under anonymity, but everybody knows who you are. Your baby's father is about to take you to court to get full custody of this kid. And let me just say, I don't know if that's a benefit to the kid or not. I think 50 comes with his own stuff. Okay. So let's just, again, just like our heart goes out to went out to Diddy's kids for what they were going through, definitely goes out to her child, to all the children, all the children who are connected to any of these adults, okay, who are making adult decisions, okay, drugs, sex, violence, DV, freak offs, escorts, multiple escorts, any of the children connected to any of these people, we have to like hope for the best for them, especially the ones who are old enough. Diddy's baby, by the time she gets old enough to know about all of this, you know, it may be just old news. But for everybody else, including Jane Doe's son, who I think is like 11 or 12, they are old enough to be impacted by this in real time. And so we're going to hope the best for the children now. Okay. How could you not? How could you not? So let me go back here and we're going to tap back in to Law and Crime and see what they're talking about. Let me just go ahead and fast forward it a bit. Here we go.
That he did a lot of the things that Cassie Ventura and
let's see,
guilty, but no one up until his death had, for the most part, pretty glowing things to say about O.J. Simpson in hindsight of how that played out, even though there was a not guilty verdict. I'm just thinking of O.J. I think of Johnny Cochran, one of the great defenses of all time. As you've covered a lot of high-profile cases, where does the defense that Sean Combs got in this case?
Man, the dude on the far right, I remember him from other shows. He has gotten old, hasn't he? I digress.
Right.
Well, it was a very good defense, but they also had good legal arguments to make. I mean, they had the fact that Cassie and Jane were in these long-term relationships with him. They had the text messages, which were very positive and at times glowing and loving, which I think helped him a lot. You had the fact that racketeering is a complicated case where you need more than one person, you need more than one crime, et cetera. So it's not really quite apples to apples, right? In a murder case as you had here.
And then just lastly,
Chris. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll let you go. Law and Crime founder and CEO Dan Abrams. Always good to have you on. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Great to be here. Elizabeth, great job, guys. Appreciate it.
We appreciate that.
Elizabeth, great coverage in the courtroom too. Love it.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, I will go to you right now. Let's break down these arguments here because
Dan Abrams. I knew who he was. I was like, he's aged. Okay. I guess we all have. Yeah, you cannot compare this case to the OJ case. It's not the same thing. It's just not the same thing for the obvious reasons. Two people were viciously unalived. OJ was acquitted. The conversation, I guess, though, was did OJ's reputation ever recover after that acquittal? I don't think it did. I think OJ also added to that, to his reputation not recovering because of some of the antics he did, but I don't think it did ever fully recover. And again, I think, that's a whole different discussion. We could talk about the things OJ did to not make that even possible, really. But yeah, that's neither here nor there, I think, as it relates to Diddy. So again, just to bring everybody up to speed, Diddy has been convicted, found guilty of the prostitution charges only. He was found not guilty of the RICO charge. He was found not guilty of trafficking. The defense wants him released today with whatever guidelines and rules he has to follow until the sentencing on those two charges. The government, of course, they over there big mad because y'all done did all of this. I heard this case cost the government or the state of New York $1 billion. I hope that's not true. This was a very expensive case that New York put on, and I can tell you right now, they out the gate overcharged Diddy by giving him a RICO charge, and they lost. So the defense is saying Diddy needs to be released today. The government is saying, no, he is a criminal. You know how much stuff he's done. If you let him out, people will have to run and take cover because, he's just a horror. And I'm like, girl, you lost. Accept it. You lost this case. You lost. They said not guilty on RICO. They said not guilty on trafficking. I definitely later today got to check on Tisa Tales because she's probably passed out because how she was going hard in the paint for guilty on everything. So we're going to see after the defense and the government has to send letters to the judge by 1 p.m. today. So he will decide if Diddy will remain incarcerated or not. I don't think if Diddy is released today, I don't think any of us saw that. I know I didn't. You're going to have these people on the news claiming, oh, I knew it. No, you didn't. You didn't know anything. Everybody was guessing. And I didn't hear anybody saying, no, I did see people in the comments who saying Diddy's going to walk, like everyday people. Whether they thought it was right he was going to walk or not. And there was a lot of people who wanted him to walk. But in my mind, there was no scenario in which I saw Diddy literally going home today. So if Diddy goes home today while he waits the sentencing, I will be shocked because I did not see that one coming at all. At all. So we're going to see what arguments the government makes and what arguments the defense makes in their letters to the judge at 1, who said he will make a decision after that on whether or not Diddy gets to go home today. Who knew that would be an option that's even on the table? Who knew? Wow.
Released today. And their proposal was that Sean Combs could walk out of the courtroom and that his travel be limited to Florida, Los Angeles, and New York City. Whereas the government opposed that application. Maureen Comey making these arguments on behalf of the prosecution. The government was saying that Mark Agnifilo was really kind of downplaying Sean Combs' conviction because everyone, just remember, he is still convicted on 2 counts. That, again, we have to kind of emphasize being transportation to engage in prostitution, also known as the Mann Act. The government also pointing out there's been extensive testimony regarding drugs throughout this trial. They also point back to the day of his arrest or the evening of his arrest when he was caught at the hotel with drugs inside his hotel room, red lighting equipment, something that they say.
The government needs to stop acting like Drake. They need to know how to accept an L. I say this to you not as a supporter of Diddy, because I am not a fan of Diddy and his lifestyle, his choices, the things he's done. I still stand 10 toes down on Diddy is a horrible person. But the fact of the matter is the government needs to accept that they lost. They are trying now to do whatever they can to make him like they're using arguments to me as if they won. I'm like, look, you keep talking about he's this, he's that. We're gonna look, you didn't prove it. You did not prove it. The jurors did not feel as if you proved it. You need to accept your L. You need to accept your L. It's only going to be harder. Like I said, don't act like Drake. It's only going to be harder if you don't know how to accept the L. You know, that's a skill set. That's a life skill set that sometimes you need to understand how to accept an L. Okay? Oh, and I just saw the comment. I'm sorry. I don't know if Carlitos, if you're still here, but thank you for the comment. Wait. Let's see. What? That's it? Wow. Yep, that's it. That's it. Those are the only charges he was convicted of. That is it. After 8 weeks, after all of the salaciousness, after all the things we heard, all the witnesses dangling people off of balconies, arson, throwing knives, throwing all this, whatever, he got convicted of the 2 prostitution charges. That is it.
Kind of alludes to that there might have been hotel night or a freak off occurring at the time that he was arrested. The prosecution also pointing out that his conviction suggests that he should be detained and that the defendant should be detained until sentencing. And so the judge asked, do you have any kind of case law about someone being held on a Mann Act charge pending sentencing? Maureen Comey says for the most part, it had to relate to children. And so she didn't have anything in relation to adults being transported over state lines. So she's going to look up that case law. Obviously, the defense is going to come back. They're going to have their arguments, probably kind of what we had heard earlier. So they're going to take a few hours to kind of work everything out. They're going to send back a letter or an email, and then we'll all kind of reconvene early this afternoon to discuss what's going to be happening next. But no, Sean Combs did not walk out of that courtroom, everyone. He is still being held inside the courthouse right behind me. It seems like, from what I could tell, his family kind of probably maybe went to go celebrate or something like that, maybe go get a bite to eat, probably really take in that it's possible their father might be coming home today. But again, it's possible. Nothing set in stone just yet.
And we just have a statement coming in from the lawyer for Cassandra Ventura. This is from Doug Wigdor. And he said in a statement, this entire criminal process started when our client, Cassie Ventura, had the courage to file her civil complaint in November 2023. Although the jury did not find Combs guilty of sex trafficking Cassie beyond a reasonable doubt, she paved the way for a jury to find him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. He continued, this is in a statement that was released to CNN, by coming forward with her experience, Cassie has left an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and the fight for justice. Exemplary courage throughout this trial, and brought attention to the realities of powerful men in our orbit and the misconduct that has persisted for decades without repercussion. I remember, Elizabeth, you talking about how emotional it was in the courtroom during Cassie Ventura's testimony. Just what's your reaction when you saw the not guilty verdict related to the charge of sex trafficking with Cassie Ventura?
I was a little surprised. I'm not going to lie to you, Chris. I was a little surprised, especially to count 2, not necessarily surprised on count 4, but I think probably and likely a question that went through those jurors' minds is probably the relationship and how long the relationship lasted. I will say that and I said this to Jesse yesterday too, that the jurors were really paying close attention to both sides' closing argument, especially Mark Agnifalo's closing argument, where I kind of think that they really listened to what he had said in terms of just, by the government's definition, by the federal law's definition of sex trafficking, it only has to be one instance. And so when Mark Agnifalo is getting up there in his closing argument and saying, okay, well, they did 75 different freak-offs, and then it's just that one instance that makes it number 76, and then that all of a sudden becomes sex trafficking, maybe the jury really kind of listened to that and really kind of took note of that. And maybe they kind of were like, okay, well, when the breakup happened, was it because of these freak-offs? Was it because of these,
hotel nights or whatever. Again, hotel nights is something Jane calls it. Cassie called them freak offs, but whether or not that was the reason that the relationship ended, because according to the testimony, it seemed like the relationship ended because of possible jealousy, because of another woman, and it didn't seem like their relationship ended necessarily because of the freak offs. But also remember, Chris, that yesterday the jury asked some very pointed questions about different instances involving Cassie, either at the Intercontinental Hotel, over at Cannes Film Festival, her interactions with Daniel Phillip. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe it's possible they were going to come back with guilty on sex trafficking, but it obviously didn't go that way today. And so I think as far as just their verdict, I do respect their verdict. These jurors were listening to the exact same testimony I was listening to. Obviously, they saw some exhibits that we weren't keen on seeing or anything like that. But I think maybe consent was really a topic of discussion as far as, you know, she kept on the relationship. Yes, while it was on and off for an 11-year period, but she kept on the relationship even after these instances of violence, even after doing these freak offs that she says she didn't want to be doing. And so maybe they were like, okay, well, you know, maybe they just, at the end of the day, their huge kind of takeaway was possibly consent being kind of at the heart of the issue.
Yeah, we'll hear what the jury has to say when they begin to speak to members of the media. I want to bring in the other members of our panel. Mina Sewat Lona, SiriusXM host, also joining us live now, as well as William Corman, who is a criminal defense attorney. Thank you both for being with us, and Elizabeth Milner also standing by outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. William, just from a standpoint, and as people are joining us right now, kind of digesting everything, so I am asking a few questions that we've touched on just in the last 20 minutes or so. But as far as the what happens now part of it, when Sean Combs is sentenced, how likely is it that he goes to federal prison on these 2 counts?
That's the $64,000 question right now, isn't it? I mean, these counts do carry with it the possibility of prison time. It wouldn't be unheard of for someone to go to prison on these types of charges. However, he has no criminal record. He has no criminal past that he's been convicted of. But one of the things the government said when the bail argument first reared its head, and again, we'll hear more about that later on, is there was continued criminal conduct even after the charges took place. So this isn't someone who has lived a law-abiding lifestyle for everything but for these cases. I mean, as you mentioned a little while ago, when he was arrested, he had drugs on him. There was post-charge conduct, So there's all sorts of things that the government can rely on to say, hey, look, he was found guilty of these 2 offenses. They are federal offenses. He was found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. They carry with it the possibility of federal prison. And for somebody like this, who has flouted the law, he should go to federal prison. His lawyers obviously will argue in the other direction. But again, I think it's possible that he goes to prison. I don't think he's going to max out. I don't think it's going to be a 10-year federal prison sentence. But it's possible that the judge decides that not staying at the MDCC is enough, and he actually needs to go to a federal facility somewhere else in the country.
And Mina, I'm going to bring you in just a moment, but I just got a super chat question that I'm going to ask William here. State Boys Louisiana asks, will Diddy be a sex offender now?
I don't know that transportation. Oh, it's a violation of the Mann Act. So yes, I think he would be considered a sex offender. I think there is a mechanism in place by which he could challenge that classification. But I do think that violation of the Mann Act carries with it sex offender registration.
All right, Mina Sewat Lona joins me now, a host on SiriusXM. Thank you for taking the time to be with us as we break down and kind of digest this verdict and everything that went down this morning. What is your reaction to what the jury found Sean Combs guilty of and not guilty of?
I think we kind of saw some of it, but I am, to be honest, a little surprised at the not guilty verdict for Cassie Ventura when it comes to the sex trafficking. We've talked extensively about the receipts and the different evidence that the prosecution presented when it comes to the transportation of the prostitutes, right? I feel like that was pretty solidified. We have talked about the RICO and how if you really follow the RICO according to the law, yeah, they proved their case, but did they really prove it to this panel of 12 jurors who are not well versed in the law? And did they prove that there was an organized criminal enterprise here? I thought that was a little up in the air, but I really thought because of that video, I thought that video was so powerful as evidence. That Cassie was forced back into a room. Sean Diddy Combs is naked in this video. They are in a mid-sex act. She is running away for her life. she's being kicked in the head and dragged back to the hotel room where a security guard testified that there was an escort in there. She clearly in that moment did not consent to that sexual act. And I was very surprised that the jury could vote not guilty on Cassie Ventura, being that there's a video in where she's clearly not consenting to sex.
Right, because it's not just what you're watching there, horrific video when we all first saw it from 2016 when it was released to CNN. You're not just watching, she said, a domestic violence incident. You are watching me try to escape a freak off and being forced. Sean Combs trying to drag her back into that freak off. And it's incredible to think that at the end of this, though that video is going to live in the minds of so many of us for so long, that it really didn't lead to a guilty verdict in relation to this trial. And that's something that is something that we're all going to have to digest and figure out going forward. Hear what the jury has to say about how they took in that video. Elizabeth, I know there's a little commotion outside the courthouse. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so right, I'm seeing a lot of people, it looks like, kind of getting into a heated debate, likely after the verdict, people got news of it and people are probably wanting to discuss it. But I just see a crowd of people kind of looking like they're maybe debating something. I heard the name Cassie kind of come out, and there's just a bunch of shouting and a lot of people kind of crowding around probably to see what's going on. But really kind of at the center of it, I just see two men kind of going back and forth arguing. So not sure, since I'm kind of across the street, what's really happening, but it seems like these two men are really getting into a very heated debate. There's some clapping going on, some people cheering. So it's likely that they're just kind of, the emotions are pretty much running high after this morning's verdict.
Yeah, I can hear them just there in the background. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Mina, I have a super chat question coming in for you. I'd like to know how much of this is going to affect Diddy's future and career after all of this. Will this break him? This is from Miss Cheryl.
He will never, in my opinion, be viewed the same way. You know, maybe there wasn't enough.
All right, y'all. So we'll see how all of this turns out today once the defense attorney and the defense attorneys in the government submit their letters to the judge. The defense attorneys want Diddy to be released today. The government wants him to remain incarcerated until sentencing. The judge has requested that they submit letters to him and he will make a decision on that. So we will see if Diddy ends up going home today. But again, Diddy was found guilty of the 2 prostitution charges only. He was found not guilty of RICO, and he was found not guilty of S trafficking. I am too, just like this lady said, I am surprised that this jury did not find him guilty of S trafficking for Cassie. And that's really because of the questions or the additional information they requested when they were deliberating. But at the end of the day, this is what it is. This is where we have landed. I don't know. There's a lot still more to talk about, a lot more to come on this. I'm sure there will still be a lot of discussion. And you know, the thing is, when it comes to Diddy, like I said earlier, the best indicator of future behavior is often past behavior. This is not the first major event in Diddy's life where you could say he kind of got out of it. These 2 prostitution charges, they come with a 10-year maximum sentence. How much time he'll get, we'll see. If any, we'll see. But it could have been a lot worse. He was looking at life in prison. If he had been found guilty on even one of the S trafficking charges, the mandatory sentence is a minimum of 15 years. RICO, he could get up to life. The S trafficking charge, he could get up to life. Okay, but the mandatory minimum was 15 years. So this is clearly, for Diddy, his team, his family, this is clearly a victory. But I say again, what will Diddy do with this victory? What will he do with it? Will he do with this victory what he's done with other victories in the past? What will he do with it? So I'm sure I'll probably be back on later this afternoon. I'm sure there's a lot more to come. I definitely will hop back on if the judge makes a decision about whether or not he can go home today, which I didn't even think that was possible. Excuse me, that we would be discussing Diddy going home today. I did not see that coming. But until then, bye y'all.